Hello, folks. Yours truly, Randy Rand, here for today's talk. Today we spoke with Dr. Renee F Hornbuckle. She's the senior pastor of the Destiny Point Christian Center in Arlington, Texas. We discussed domestic violence, and she has a plethora of knowledge to share for all of us to listen to. And I hope you enjoy the interview. Thanks. We are speaking with Dr. Renee Fowler Hornbuckle. She's the senior pastor of Destiny Point Christian Center, and we're so glad to have her here today on today's talk. How are you doing today, Dr. Hornbuckle?
I'm great, and how are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you. I cannot complain. If you could, please introduce yourself to Westchester and Dutchess County.
Well, first of all, let me say it's great having you to invite me to be a part of your show. I'm always excited about an opportunity to really just speak to the communities at large. But basically, I like to tell people I'm just a little old woman from Arkansas who just kind of made her way through matriculating through corporate America, found herself landed in the Dallas, Texas area. And that's really kind of where my story picks up, if you will. I'm currently serving as the senior pastor of Destiny Point Christian Center. I'm also the founder and president of Women of Influence and Destiny Empowerment Enterprises Incorporated, where we serve our community through combating hunger in our community and also with transitional living facilities, helping people to heal while things get better so that they can get back to life and to living. So we're doing a lot here in the area, and I just thank God every day that I have the opportunity to be able to serve others with my life.
You are quite busy, and that is quite an impressive resume that you've just given us. I want to first ask you, please take us through your experience as a battered wife during your marriage to your ex-husband.
Well, up until about 2005, I really thought that I was, and considered myself to really be living the American dream, and I referenced that that's what it was quite often. We had great success, and I really felt like I was ready to conquer the world and take on pretty much anything. And so really in the eyes of many, because of the position that my ex-husband and I served in within our community, we really had that status of being seen as being successful, but it was more so from the external side of things. We had a successful marriage, a thriving ministry, what appeared to be a fruitful relationship and lucrative businesses and three incredible children that, by the way, are still incredible children. But all of that really crashed down after a adulting scandal in 2005 that my then husband and my pastor, and he was a bishop at the time, was facing multiple allegations of narcotics possession and extreme gross sexual misconduct that ultimately criminally landed him incarcerated. And so I found myself, first of all, faced with the scandal of being just paralyzed with this real life, scandal, and it was very challenging. It was a lot of shame, embarrassment, humiliation, a lot of public suffering and sorrow, and along with that came the loss of finances, relationships, and all the possessions that I felt that it made us be successful. And so it was very difficult dealing with that. But then in 2012, as I was still working to heal from this incredible scandal, I set out to write a book. And I had a book deal with a publisher at the time. And at that point, my children, all three, were about to hit college at the same time, and it's rare to get a book publishing deal with an advance. And so I was very excited about having that added income to my finances. However, right before I signed the contract, the publisher pulled the contract, and I really struggled. I said, "Okay, God, I've done everything you've told me. I've rebuilt from the scandal. I've trusted you, believed for you, poured into my children, my congregation, my community. What, God?" And God just really said to me, "You know what, that's not the book I told you to write." And as he began to tell me the book that I needed to write, it dealt with me now having the courage to be able to come out and talk about something that I had suffered for years in our relationship, and that was that I had been a victim of domestic violence.
Now, given the negative experience that you had to endure living with an abusive husband, what gave you the wherewithal to know that God was in control and that he was going to deliver you?
Well, I think from the very beginning that my strong faith and my belief in God was really what sustained me during my difficult days and times. I really believed that God would, turn things around. I really believed that my faith was strong, and I just really believed that, I had landed someplace that God would be able to get me out of. And so my faith was always strongly intact, and I always believed that God would turn things around. I think the issue arises most often is that so often we won't identify or acknowledge the realities of our life, and as a result of that, we're in denial. And so God can try to get you out of situations, but most often if you're not accepting that that's your situation, even when He comes through, if you don't know that you need to get out of it, or you've not accepted or owned the fact that you do, then a lot of times then you miss that opportunity to get out. And I believe that over the years that I had really missed opportunities to get out of a relationship that ultimately just drained me of a quality of life internally, and then caused a lot of suffering. Now, the man that I married, I tell people all the time, now this is kind of a two-edged sword. He was an incredible individual, but he was also equally as incredible in manipulation and control. And so with people like that, you often don't even understand the cycle that you've gotten yourself caught up in. Quite often they move very quickly. For example, they get too close too fast. Everything is, moving very quickly. They capture you while you're still kind of in that honeymoon phase, and then they really prey upon you and move upon you. And so what we have to learn how to do is be very aware of what I call the warning signs, the yellow flags and the red flags, because those are going to be the indicators that let you know that maybe I need to slow things down a little bit, or maybe I need to pay attention a little bit more. Maybe I need to give it a little bit more time, because when we don't, that's when we get caught up into the betrayal, the manipulation, and the control.
So, would you say vulnerability, kind of, with regards to you saying that he was manipulative and controlling? Would you say that vulnerability also plays a part in this?
Well, vulnerability does play a part in it, but if we could just look for a moment at some of the abusers and how what they do to really strip you, to get you to that place to where you're dependent upon them. They really are masterful again, and I use that word all the time because it's important for people to understand, because I get questions all the time, how in the world did you get into this? You're a smart, intelligent woman. But people that are masterfully manipulative, that know how to exert their power and control, are very strategic in what they do. They can be extremely possessive, and the way that communicates to gaining control over you is that they'll say things to you like, I really can't make it without you, and I really need you to be there for me, and I'm just so dependent upon you. And so when you're vulnerable, you get caught up and you fall prey to that, and you feel like you're obligated to be able to, be there for that person. And then once they kind of woo you in, then they start that pattern of slowly stripping away your identity. They start by isolating you from people. Again, letting you know that their need for you is so much greater, and you feel obligated to respond to them. And but it's a slow process. They kind of work their way through really gaining control and trust of you in an unhealthy way, and then ultimately you become codependent or dependent upon that person. And so a lot of times in relationships, we're so eager and so excited about, being a part of someone's life that, when we see things that just should set off alarms within us, or, my mom used to say it's that intuition that you have, most often we'll ignore it, and then slowly but surely we'll be caught up into something, and once you're in it, it's very difficult to get out of.
Now, during the time of your trial, and the trial meaning the trial that your husband had to go through, as well as your own personal trial and tribulation, did you ever think that you would ever make it out and live the life you're presently enjoying?
Well, I think there was an initial period of just absolute shock in terms of where I felt my life had landed. Basically, sitting there in his trial, as you referenced, it was it really was a surreal moment in terms of just thinking about, you know what, I really have been married to someone. I thought I knew them, and they've really been living a double life. And I sat there in that courtroom for 28 days, and they revealed things, and I thought, how in the world could I have not known this and seen this? There were things that I was suspect of, but again, being in an abusive relationship, you don't question a lot of those things. And so, in fact, the more aggressive I got in asking questions, the more aggressive he got toward me. And but that was a very, very difficult thing. Sitting there realizing that someone that I had been married to all of these years was betraying me at this level, leading a double life, and so, I had to make a decision, and that decision was, I said, you know what, I've got to be able to grab my life and get back to living in some capacity. And it was very challenging, very challenging from the initial onset. There were days because, when you go through things such as this, you're down, you're out, you're not feeling real good. And there were days when I just literally had to make a conscious decision that, Lord, get me up for today. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. If I can just make it through today, if I can, provide to my kids exactly what they need, make certain that they're in carpools, show up to their games, gives them a sense of normalcy in some capacity, then that's really all the strength that I had for a period of time. But it was a choice. I tell people you have to choose to engage back in life, no matter how horrific life, circumstances are. We all have to get to a place to where we can get back up and get engaged, and it's going to take time. It's going to take work. When I was first hit with the realities of what my life really was, I was stunned out of my mind, and I just could not believe that these things had really happened. And so it took a moment for me to really say, okay, what's next? What's next? The first thing is I got to get up, and I just got to engage in life. And so what happens is that, when people go through things in life, they're shocked, and then they go through an initial coping stage, and that's when you really have to make that decision to really accept where you are and what's going on and begin to cope with the realities of your life. And that's what I had to do. And you go through a lot during that time. There were days when I felt very ill-equipped. I was overly anxious. I tell most people if they're feeling this way that, it's good to be able to seek out counsel to get professional help that you need. I certainly had a strong inner circle around me, and those individuals prayed for me. They encouraged me and reminded me that, I had still much to do even though my life was falling apart. And so those things are important to have around you when you're going through something like this. And then eventually you get back to that place where you make the adjustments in life, which is where I am today. So now fast forward 10 years later, and I'm still making adjustments. I'm still rebuilding, but I've never been at more peace in my life. My kids have accomplished great things. I'm still involved within my ministry and my community, and I thank God that I made that decision to get back up and get engaged in life, because had I not, I can't even imagine where I'd be. So daily, I just encourage people, you know what, I don't care what happens to you in life, you can get back to life. Just don't lose faith in God and know that He can get you over anything.
We're speaking to Dr. Renee Fowler Hornbuckle. She's the senior pastor of Destiny Point Christian Center, and we're so glad that she's given us some of her time today. In your last answer, you mentioned something a little bit about transitioning, say from 1 minute thinking that everything is okay, and then the roof falls in, or the roof caves in, and now you find yourself sitting in a courtroom hearing all of these awful things that you're not really aware of, or maybe you had a suspicion of. Well, the bottom line is you need to make some incredible changes in order to move forward in your life, which brings me to my next question, talking about change, which is an awesome experience. It will either make or break you in life. It's not necessarily a nice experience either. Please explain.
No, it's not.
Yes.
I love that. I love the way you put it. It's not, but change is good.
Change is good, and certainly I can speak to it myself personally. Change Yeah, it can be good, but some days, like you mentioned, you have those dog days where you're sitting there and you look up and you say, "Lord, really?" But speaking to your experience, if you could just explain just a little more about your approach to explaining change to people who are hurting and or are going through change right now.
Well, you know what? I think the first thing that we really, really have to do is just accept the realities of our life, because the truth of the matter is that when you go through life changes and when you're transitioning, and you're trying to consider what's next, you've got to be able to have some kind of system or process in place so that you can make light out of where you are. And so I have what I kind of call a coping strategy list that I like to give people. And it's where, and I did this personally, and so when you're going through an initial phase of some type of life-altering situation, the first thing that you need to do is really process your feelings. I mean, what we feel and what we go through is absolutely real. And you have to be able to process that. I tell people, if you need to scream, scream. If you need to yell, yell. If you need to roll on the floor, do whatever you need to do. But I want you to do that with the knowledge that at some point you're going to have to get up. Okay, you're going to have to get up and
Yeah.
still deal with where you are. And so being in touch with your reality and how you feel about that situation, it will cause you to begin to own where you are. Unfortunately, we go through life, things begin to happen, and a lot of times we can't change our circumstances. We can't change our situation. But what you can do is you can pick up the pieces after and make the life changes that you need to make. You can do the inner work. That's really what we call the process, the inner work. And when you do the inner work and you commit to yourself that you're going to do what's required, it allows you to really get in touch with your true, your authentic self, and takes you to a place of inner discovery. Again, you may need to seek professional help if necessary, but that place will cause you to come out of denial and really accept the truth of your realities. And then once you really own where you are, then you can begin to identify it and start that personal inner healing process. For example, for me, it was a long time before I could even say the words that I was an abused woman. I would talk around it. Well, I wasn't owning it. And it wasn't until I owned it when that book deal was taken and I had to look at the realities of my life and I had to call it what it was. That's when my healing began. I like to tell people the sooner that you confront where you are, the sooner the change that needs to take place in your life can occur. But you've got to own it. You've got to be able to name it so that you can do the inner healing work that's required. Change your attitude about the situation, evaluate your core beliefs and just see what you need to do to make the necessary adjustments in your life to bring about the change that ultimately is going to get you back to a better quality of life, And then that's probably the biggest hurdle you have to get over. And then once you're able to kind of have some type of piece about, moving through this process, we have to take care of ourselves. One thing that I tell people all the time is that, you've got to be able to process information effectively. And so if you're not, taking care of you, if you're not resting and if you're not maybe exercising or just having a little bit of downtime to you with yourself, then you're not going to be able to make the right decisions about life and where you are and the relationships that you're in. As I was going through the 28 days of trial, it was vitally important that I put myself around, first of all, people that were full of wisdom. Number two, people that were going to help me to take responsibility for where I was. But then also, number three, I needed to rest. Because when you rest, you can process effectively. And it's usually in the early onset of life transitioning where you have to make very critical decisions. And you need to be able to make the right decisions at the right time so that you get the desired outcome that's really going to put you in a better place, And once you do that, it was vitally important. If I can sleep during the night, then I can get up and I can run carpool and I can create some type of normal life as best as possible. That can be hard sometimes, especially when you feel like your life has been turned upside down.
Sure.
But, trying to get back to some kind of new routine, and it's okay for you to have to create a new routine or a new reality in your life. People do it all the time, and, the biggest resistance to change oftentimes is not changing. And
Yeah.
so we have to accept and give ourselves permission that, it's okay.
You mentioned getting rest. I'm getting a little older now. I never like to consider myself old, but I'm not as young as I used to be. I'll put it to you
Well,
that way.
we're gracefully maturing. How about that?
That's right. That's right. Gracefully maturing, and I have developed a quite a healthy respect for rest.
Yes.
Sleep is a good thing.
It is. It is.
I was out and running about earlier today, and came home, my wife and I, and I'm, milling around the house and whatever. I said, I'm gonna take a nap before I do the interview today because I'll feel refreshed. And sure enough, and this is true most of the time anyway. When I'm here at home, I'll come
hmm
home from work, I'll take me a nice nap, and it's just such a refreshing thing. I feel like I can, challenge the world and win. You know, and
Absolutely.
rest is very vital indeed. Yes.
Well, it really is, because if you think about how short-circuited our world is today, you have people that have fits of rage, that have these heinous acts that, they perform, or attitudes that they have, or demeanors they have in the workplace. And I mean, just sometimes even going to the grocery store, it seems like everybody's so short-fused. And so I love statistics, and so I was looking at something, and they were saying that a lot of these problems are arising because people are so sleep deprived. And so when you naturally think about it, if you're rested, and if you have that time, like you say, to turn down, you will feel refreshed. You will feel rejuvenated. And so, I tell people that are going through any kind of crisis, you have to have that time to turn down and just to turn off, just to rest your body so that you can replenish and refuel, so that you can be sharp and on point. And that's basically what you're saying. So I like that fact. And you're right, the fact that we're older now and we're gracefully maturing, we have to be okay with the fact, that we may need to just have a few more moments of maybe meditation time or reflection time, or just time where we're just satisfied with being, and not so rushed and not so always eager to move on to what's next, because then we can't fully give of ourselves. And that's what's really important, that we're able to fully give, make the right decisions, make the right choices, and do the things that are required. And having thought them through while resting is very vital to a quality of living.
I want to transition for a moment. I want you to try and explain to the best of your ability what might be going through a man's head as he's exercising and usurping abusive behavior to or on the ones that he claims to love.
That's a very challenging situation. I let me just say this. Abuse is any form of demeaning physical actions toward an intimate partner, and it takes on a lot of different forms. It takes on the form, it can be physical, it can be sexual, it can even be financial, certainly emotional and psychological. And I think one of the things that we don't do is spend enough time really dealing with the abuser. Because I work with so many here in the area that are advocates for domestic violence, we dialogue about this a lot. And in talking with a lot of the judges from their expertise, I'll say this: they've identified that a lot of abusers typically will have had some type of unresolved issue within their own life, and they've never dealt with that issue. And as a result of that, and I know you've heard the term "hurting people hurt people," they end up hurting people,
Mm-hmm.
especially based on the fact that they've had hurt inflicted upon them. But there's also something very interesting that has been subject of a dialogue that we've been having here as of recent, because typically if something happens and someone does get reported and they get arrested, they typically try to send them to anger management. And one thing about the abuser is that they absolutely can control their anger. They control their anger, because typically when things happen, if they're in public and others are around, they don't retaliate. They wait. They control that behavior until they get behind closed doors, most often. And when they get behind closed doors, then that's when they assault or they attack the intimate partner. And so I think we have to really be in a place to where we begin to teach, and it's not just men anymore, but people that exemplify these behaviors. We really begin to deal with them to the root core of what's really going on with them. Because at the end of the day, I know for me, there was nothing that I could do that would change the response or the reaction of the man that I had given my life to through marriage, if he was not in the right state of mind. It just would not have mattered. And when I look back over it, he had unresolved issues, and there were behaviors and things, even though, we were allowed to raise up, and have that image of being a successful couple. Still within him, there were insecurities and there were unresolved issues within him that need to be dealt with. And so we have to get to the core of the matter when it comes to dealing with people that are abusers.
You mentioned insecurities just a second ago. Certainly, I know about domestic violence and the ugly damage that it can inflict upon people, upon families, so forth and so on. But one thing that, and this is for men or women, one thing that I find with people that abuse is that they have some inner demons going on.
Absolutely.
Those are some demons at play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Here in society, we look at the person or persons that are exerting this abuse, and they're doing this, they're doing that, they're saying this, they're saying that, so forth and so on, and they're being manipulative, they're being controlling, and so forth and so on. But in today's society, I don't think we pay enough attention to the spiritual aspect of it. There are some demons going on there, boy, and those demons are so powerful that I don't think that we, as humans, can really deal with them unless we go to the Lord about it and ask the Lord to help us with whatever situation that we are in, or especially for the abuser.
Yeah.
If you could just speak to that a little bit, I'd thoroughly appreciate it.
Well, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, I just identified it as unresolved issues, and you identified it as the demons within, and you're exactly right. And the spiritual community needs to be trained and equipped on how to deal with these things, because at the end of the day, the bottom line is we want a person whole, complete, delivered, and set free. That's the bottom line. And as much as there are the spiritual connotations to it, we believe that we, in the name of Jesus, can, cast out these spirits. But at the same time, we do so, but there has to be that professional support that's there to help that person to be able to process through in order to get their full healing and deliverance. And so one of the things that we're trying to do in reference to my book, Suffering in Silence, is presented as a tool to be able to equip people in ministry so that they understand the systems and the processes that must be walked through so that we can marry the spiritual and the natural so that we can get people help. You're exactly right. I mean, we have to look at it for what it is, and quite often it's a combination of the two. I think one of the overlooked areas in the church, in the religious community nowadays, is the aspect of mental illness, and we have to become educated on it and know what to do. In our ministry, I have a congregational care pastor who is a counselor, and quite often she'll do the initial evaluations with individuals and make the determination on what aspect of deliverance they need to walk through. And most often it is a combination of spiritual deliverance and also natural deliverance as well.
We are speaking with Dr. Renee Fowler Hornbuckle, Senior Pastor of Destiny Point Christian Center. You mentioned your sons a moment ago, and if you could, I'd like for you to speak to the steps that you're taking to prevent your sons from going down the same path as their father.
Well, I'm the proud mother of two boys and a daughter, and in my own personal experience with domestic violence, my children did not know. I sheltered them from that. I protected them from it, and so they did not see it or experience. And one of the main reasons that I protected them so greatly was because I knew that, especially boys that see someone abuse their mother, they typically intervene. And when they intervene, they usually are harmed. And so that was one of my reasonings, that I just thought I can't have my kids exposed to this because, number one, I don't want them to step in and get harmed. Number two, I don't want them exemplifying the same behaviors. And so, in speaking with my boys, we've had conversation about this all their lives. They had always been trained and taught to never put their hands on a woman, to always walk away. And I'm proud to say that they still have very strong beliefs that is a way to handle situations with a woman. But they also now strongly believe it just because of now knowing my full story. When I wrote this book in 2012 and I sat down with my kids individually and shared with them what I had been experiencing in the home behind closed doors, even with them there, you can imagine it was heart-wrenching for them. But at the same time, they really loved me and cared about me. We had instilled incredible morals and values within them, and so it just kind of took it up a notch, if you will, because
Yeah.
now it made it real to them, because it's like, now this has happened to our mom, a woman that we adore, and so we're certainly going to make certain that we hold true to that, and I thank God for that. They're very fine young men.
Okay, I want to switch gears again. I want to give you an opportunity to promote some of the work that you are doing, the incredibly important work that you're doing. And if you could please talk about your organization, Women of Influence Incorporated.
Well, I have many great work that God has allowed me to be involved in, but Women of Influence Incorporated is actually an aspect of ministry that God had given me, that we might be able to reach out and really empower women internationally and girls, to really help to build them up and to become the true women, empowered with the right tools so that they could be able to really step up and make an influence in all aspects of life, spiritually, physically, and financially. And, I like to say, help to equip them to become what I consider to be just an incredible model for us as women, the Proverbs 31 woman, the woman that could bring home the bacon fried up in a pan
Mm-hmm.
and take care of her family and her children, and, really prepare the way for her husband to sit at the city gates and be blessed, and her children just to say, my mom's phenomenal. And so that's really the mission and the goal of Women of Influence Incorporated. We also, that was the first outreach of the transitional living that Women of Influence embarked upon, where we, at that particular time, now we include families, but originally it started out with, providing transitional living and life skills training, practical skills training, case management, done by my staff, where we could help a person based on their individual needs while they were in that transitional home, to get them exactly what they needed, so when they left that place that they would be able to move into a higher quality of life, good jobs, knowing how to manage aspects of their life. And so today we're still involved in the community and doing a work that I think is just incredible, because we don't traditionally fulfill the niches that most of your other agencies fulfill. And from that, we also have Destiny Empowerment Enterprises Incorporated, where the last numbers of years we've been really focused on family initiatives, really helping to build the whole family. I just have to give a little bit of testimony to an incredible family that we took in that had some, didn't seem to appear to be a lot of issues, but when we began to peel back the layers, we found that there was all types of addictions within the family. And, being able to take a family through and to peel away the layers, to get to the core issues of their life, and then to help them build their life so that they can step back out and, be qualified to step into jobs and positions and housing. I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than being able to just see people have that improved quality of life. And so that family initiative is very important for us as we do our work here, and then the youth initiatives that we take on as well. I believe that, our youth are going to be our next generation of leaders, and we got to start training them right now,
Yep,
so they
that's
can
right.
take good care of us
That's right.
and be in those powerful positions to be able to, be influencers and shakers. And so we reach out into our local community. During the summer months, we combat hunger in our area around our ministry. We just want kids to know that, hey, you know what, it doesn't matter your circumstances. You can be great, and you're destined for greatness, and we're here to help you to build a life that's going to, be rewarding. And so these are just a few of the things that we're doing and making a difference in our community.
I've interviewed, quite a few people in my little bit of years of trying to broadcast or whatever. And whenever I do these interviews, I always like to structure the interview, how I ask the questions, when I ask the questions, so forth and so on. And I always like to leave a big fat. Are you a steak eater? You like steak?
I do. Look. I'm originally from Arkansas, and I live in Texas. So
Okay,
you can't
okay.
be here and not like beef.
I got you. I grew up in Virginia, in the South, and I love steak. I love steak, and my favorite cut is a ribeye. And the way that I
Oh,
eat that ribeye, I eat the rest of the steak, but I always like to leave a couple of pieces of fat because the fat for me is the best piece of the steak. You know.
there you go.
Well, here is the fat, and I don't mean in a bad way or anything. I mean in the best possible way. I've been really wanting to ask you this question in talking about your current book, Suffering in Silence. Not only do I want you to, talk about it and certainly promote it at will, but I want you to please take us through what you were going through at that time in your life.
Well, I think the thing of it is that, especially when I wrote this book in 2012, I do not believe that I really fully understood exactly what I had experienced and how liberating it would be until I actually finished the book. It was a very, very hard write, but again, I think what was going through my mind when I wrote it, and actually when I started writing the book, I wrote 2 pages for 6 months, and then my peer group or my wife's counsel said to me, just write, get it out. And as I began to write, it just began to just walk me through so much wholeness. And again, it goes back to really owning where you are, because I think the reality of it is that again, is if you are in a hard place in your life and you really want to pick the pieces up, again, you have to do that inner work. You got to come out of denial, and you have to accept the truth. So when I sat down to pen this book, and I began to talk about how I had suffered in silence all the years that I had, and I really began to focus on the fact that God was allowing me opportunity to break the silence on the thing that I had hidden, or somebody else may call it a hidden secret. I don't know about you, but I come from the generation where, we were told, what happens in this house stays in this house.
Yeah.
And so a lot of things were, swept under the rug. But there's something liberating about finding your voice, being able to speak about that. In fact, it's like the shackles are broken off of you, and the enemy no longer has a hold on you when you're able to say it out loud. That's why I so strongly believe that people have to own where they are, because that really is the beginning of the suffering ending and the healing beginning. You may still have to walk through a process. You may still have to get the help that you need. But that's what this book did for me. I thought it was just going to be another literary tool that God had me to write, but this tool actually was what brought me into my complete and final wholeness, my breaking out of the bondage that I had been in within the relationship. And that's what we hope to do for people, to be able to walk them through no matter what they've experienced in life. And ultimately, I like to say, where they can learn how to use their pain to propel them into greater purpose and get back to living. That's really what my journey has been all about, how the enemy may have meant it for evil, but if we just look at it from the perspective that God can use it, God can get the glory out of it, and it's my faith. It really gave me the strength to really keep me together, to get beyond where I was, and to really be able to get back to enjoying life and moving forward into a great future. And so at the end of the day, every day it's like, God, I just hope that somebody will see hope in me and be encouraged to get back to life.
We have been speaking with Dr. Renee Fowler Hornbuckle, Senior Pastor of Destiny Point Christian Center, and she's been very kind in giving us some of her time today and speaking about domestic violence and about a range of different emotions and different transitions that she's had to experience in her life. Dr. Hornbuckle, please feel free to plug your website and any of your other works and or projects.
Well, they can find me on at my website at reneehornbuckle.com, and then they can follow me also on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and even on Pinterest. I got a chuckle out of somebody the other day, and they said, "Well, why would you be on Pinterest?" I said, "Because people are pinning everything that they like." So what I do is I do wonderful sayings, encouragement, motivational sayings that people can pin to their page and be encouraged. So I'm on Pinterest too, and the things that are upcoming in the very near future. We're working on some new books right now. I actually do have a new ebook entitled "Sustained." That, matter of fact, all of my books, not just "Suffering in Silence," are available on Amazon.com, and I've got an incredible new ebook, simple read. It's part of a series that I'm going to be releasing. The first in the series I'll be releasing later in the year and then going into 2016. But it's a really good read, and it really just kind of walks people, through, how is it that they too can be sustained by God no matter where they are in life. Somebody may be going through, a job transition or a relationship transition, or maybe the kids are going off to college and you've got the empty nest, and we go through a host of emotions when we, go through life transition, any kind of change or any kind of life transition. And so prayerfully the tools that God has allowed me to pen will be a blessing. And again, they can be found on reneehornbuckle.com, or they can follow us on any of the social media, and also visit Amazon.com, put in Renee Hornbuckle, and they'll see the tools that are available to them there as well.